Hello internet, and today is another wrap up. It's the last one. It's the last one. This the 12th subject. It's the last subject that we'll be talking about. It's the last one. I swear. I swear. You're almost done. You're almost done. I'm almost done. You probably haven't watched every video, all 12 of them, which are in various like 10-minute lengths. But today is the NEWTs readathon wrap up for the NEWT subject Muggle Studies, and the first prompt was for my acceptable, and that was to read a favorite author, and this one was a great time. I was so happy. So I have like this whole list that I made of books that I was going to read for each prompt. I crossed them out, put new books, all of that sort of stuff, but this helped me keep track of it. And the first book I had put on here was Bloody Rose, but Bloody Rose did not come out until like the 28th of August, so I was really worried that I would not be able to get my hands on a copy or read it in time to actually count it as a part of my NEWTs readathon, but I did, and I had a good time. So Bloody Rose is by Nicholas Eames, who wrote Kings of the Wild, which some of you may know is one of my favorite books. Now, this one is a companion slash sequel. You don't have to read Kings of the Wild to read this, but there are definitely a lot of things that happen in Kings of the Wild that are referenced in Kings of the Wild, a lot of context that is given in Kings of the Wild that is necessary for you to fully appreciate and understand this book. Now, this book is about one of the main characters of Kings of the Wild's daughter, Bloody Rose. So Golden Gabe, who was the headman for a famous band called what was it called? Saga. And in this world, they live in a fantasy world, and bands are the names given to a team that goes out and hunts monsters. Well, Golden Gabe was one of the best, and now his daughter Bloody Rose is also one of the best, but she also kind of lives in her the shadow of her father. So this is about a young singer maestro, a bard that joins the Fable team, which is the band of Bloody Rose, and goes along and just learns more about these companions. Now, this definitely has a different feel from Kings of the Wild. Completely different feel. And that has to do with the narrator, with the main character. Like, the narrator of this book is in no way Clay Cooper. Like, Clay Cooper was just the best. I loved him as a character, and he just made this story the way he was so introspective, the way that he gave little quips in his mind about like things, the way that he naturally would be like, ah, yes, this has happened, like something would be happening, and he'd be like, ah, yes, 20 years ago. I remember the same thing happening then. He was just such a great character. This, we have a very different character. She is only 18. She's untried, untested. So she definitely has a different way of telling her story and telling the story of people around her. And there's definitely a different relationship between her and the other people around her. So I want to highly recommend this book and say that it is a fantastic book. However, I do not want anyone going into this book thinking that it's going to have the same feel as Kings of the Wild. I think we always need to remind ourselves of that, especially with like companion slash sequel books that aren't going to have the same character narrating, that despite it taking in place in the same world, despite it being the same author, despite it having various similarities, it's still going to be a different character, and it's going to have a different voice, and you're going to want it to have a different voice because it is a different character. So I really like this. I loved it. Also, just like some rep thrown out there is female-female romance in this because our lead is a lesbian. So, yeah. That's all I'm going to say about this book for right now. But I was really happy that I did get to read it because I still love Nicholas Eames. Like, even the second book, I was like, oh, maybe I just loved his first book. Nope, I loved his second book too. It was also really good. And, yeah, so definitely enjoyed it. The second prompt was for Exceeds Expectation. Read a biography. That's the word. That's the word. And this, I read Rad Women Worldwide. This was a biography about several women. Ones who are currently alive, ones in the past, all who were fantastic and powerful and did amazing things. during their lifespan or are doing amazing things during their lifespan around the world from everywhere. And it's just like short little biopics of a bunch of women that the author talked about. I did like it. Nothing like Mackenzie Lee's biopic, Badass Bygone Broads, but you know what? Not everything can be as entertaining as Mackenzie Lee made that biopic collection. This one was good, but if I had to pick one out of the two that I've read so far, definitely pick Mackenzie Lee's. I thought it was so funny. It was like she just had an entertaining voice that wasn't really in this one. This one was more like, I don't know, like dry textbook taste and had a dry textbook feel to it. Still very informative, still had some interesting stuff, but you really couldn't feel any personality. It was just really textbook, which was kind of disappointing because I was hoping that it would be at least semi-similar, but you know what, I'll move on. And then the last prompt was for an O, and that was to read a book that was a retelling. And this, I read Spinning in Silver, which is a Rumpelstiltskin retelling, as well as sort of a Hades Persephone retelling. Thoughts and Tones probably really enjoyed this book. I need to watch her book review, because I want to hear her thoughts. Like, the moment I got to the part where it was like Hades Persephone, I was like, man, Sam better be reading this book, because I know she loves this stuff. So I did like this book. I did read it on audiobook, and I would hesitate to recommend that, because there are multiple point of views in this book, and there is not a good distinction between points of view. I don't know whether or not that distinction would be easier to manage if you were physically reading it and could see the chapter breaks, could see the new chapter and all of that. In the audiobook, there was never any vocal command saying, oh, this is the next chapter, or saying, oh, this is this character talking now. And the narrator had very similar voices for all the characters. It was just the voice that she had. I wouldn't say it was the exact same, but she had very similar accents and voices for the characters. So while I could tell the difference between two of the main characters, Wanda and Marin, because they just had a different way of speaking, there was an introduction of a third character, sort of like, I guess, a fourth of the way through the book, and I did not know for like a good while that there was a new character. I just kept getting really confused, because I was like, is this Marin? Like, I know it's not Wanda. Is this Marin? That doesn't even sound like her. Like, I know what her family is like. This doesn't sound like her family. Like, I know, like, what? And then I realized it was a new character, and so then I had a lot of trouble, because there's not like good cue points telling you which character they've moved on to. I don't know if in the physical book it says at the top what character is talking now, but it was really frustrating. And then more characters are introduced in the end where they get their own point of views. And I don't think those characters were as distracting, but they're the voice for Marin and for the other girl who married the king, or Khazar, or whatever his name is. Those two sounded so similar, and it was so confusing. So I think there was a good chunk in the middle of the book where I was just highly confused for a lot of it, because I couldn't follow along well, because I wouldn't be able to tell which character was talking until like at least a couple pages into the new point of view, and that just kept getting me lost. So I thought the beginning of the book really strong, and the end of the book really strong. The middle, the audiobook muddles everything up, and it wasn't as strong. But I did like this book, okay? I'm not saying I didn't like it, but I wouldn't recommend the audiobook, okay? Because the audiobook is probably going to confuse you. You might have a better time with this book if you physically read it. It might be easier. I don't know. Maybe it's going to have the same problem, but maybe it's not. It's a good book. I just think it could have had like some like chapter headers that told you which character was talking fucking when, so I wouldn't be so confused by who's talking and what the hell was going on. But other than that, everything was going good. I like the book. I like these books. Books are great. Books are great. And I read 36 books this month. 36 books. Wow. 36 books. Were half of them graphic novels? Yes. But still, 36 books. That's a lot. That's a lot. that is a lot. A lot of books. But I do want to say, if you have read Spitting Silver already by Naomi Novik, did you have a hard time with it? Like, I know of one other person who's mentioned having a hard time with the audiobook. Did you have a hard time reading it physically, or are you also having the same problem with the audiobook? Like, was it just me? I was highly confused. Please tell me that I was not confused alone. I know I wasn't alone. There was at least one other person. Tell me that there is at least more than 2 people who was highly confused by the points of view and the way that they were presented in this book in the middle of the book, because I think it was highly confusing. It was highly confusing, okay? It was. But if you like what you see here, you want to continue to see more, click all those bunny buttons down below, and goodbye, Internet.